This video is going to be a guide for returning players and new players who are wondering what activities are important in Pokemon GO as of 2023. This game is several years old, and plenty of players often come back to the game after a long hiatus. However, Pokemon GO is constantly evolving, with a ton of changes happening to the game almost on a monthly basis. If you are one of those players coming back to the game after a long break, or you are a new player looking to know what you can do in the game, then this video will inform you on all of the important aspects of Pokemon GO you need to focus on. Real quick before we continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new to my channel. I provide all sorts of info on Pokemon GO, so if you want to elevate your gameplay, then be sure you are subscribed with the notification bell turned on, so that you don't ever miss a beat. Alright, with that said, let's talk about Pokemon GO. The first thing I want to talk about is regarding in-game events and seasons. These have been a staple of Pokemon GO for the past few years. Since there are over 700 different Pokemon in the game at this point, Niantic have been using these events in order to have diverse spawns without the chaos of just having every species in the game at once. In-game events typically last for a week, and generally have a central theme based on either something from the Pokemon franchise or a real-life holiday like Halloween, Lunar New Year, or Valentine's Day. Wild Pokemon encounters, raid battles, and egg hatches will follow the theme of the event. So if there are certain Pokemon you are looking for in order to fill up your Pokedex, you may need to wait until a corresponding event with that Pokemon happens in the game. Otherwise, you will likely not come across certain Pokemon, as they will be overtaken by the event spawns. Now, alongside in-game events, we also have seasons. These are meta events that encompass multiple months, and typically coincide with the 4 quarters of the year. Each season has with it a list of various gameplay bonuses that are unique to that season. They could range from guaranteed Candy XL from trades, experience gains from raids, additional free daily raid passes, etc. Each season has an overall theme that will influence the wild Pokemon encounters and in-game events. For example, the season of Alola had a theme around the release of Alola region Pokemon. Every in-game event had various Alola Pokemon, even though each of them had their own theme. Finally, most seasons will typically have a very long special research storyline that will involve the entire duration of content. Certain steps in the special research will be time-gated and will usually be themed around the season itself. Recently, we had the Season of Light, and it had the theme of Cosmog's evolution line. Every step of the special research involved getting, interacting with, and evolving a Cosmog, ultimately culminating in you getting either Solgaleo or Lunala. This is typical of what you have every season. It's Niantic's way of keeping you active over a long period of time. So yeah, seasons and in-game events are pretty important. It may seem daunting, but you can keep yourself up to date on the current season and even through the game itself. If you go to the Today tab where you find timed research, you can see what the current season and in-game event is going on. They will list all of the bonuses and any relevant info. You will also find any special short-term events like Spotlight Hours and Community Days going on here as well. Make a habit of checking this every day, as some in-game events may start without you realizing it. This seems like a good segue into the next topic I want to discuss: recurring short-term events. These include Spotlight Hours, Community Days, and Legendary Raid Hours. Without question, these are some of the most important activities in Pokemon GO. Let's first talk about Spotlight Hours. These weekly events happen every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. local time. Think of this as a power hour. Basically, a predetermined Pokemon begins spawning en masse everywhere in your area. They temporarily add additional spawn points, and there's typically a bonus attached to them. These bonuses can be double Stardust per catch, double Candy per catch, double experience points per catch, double Candy from transferring, and double experience points per evolution. Spotlight Hours are extremely important. They are some of the best ways to get Candy and Candy XL of specific Pokemon, and depending on the bonus, you can rack up a ton of experience or Stardust. Definitely pay attention to what Spotlight Hour is going to be happening, and plan around them. They only last for 1 hour every week, so it's not too much of a time investment. Now the next thing I want to talk about in this category is of course Community Days. If you're a returning player, chances are you know what these are. Community Days are very similar to Spotlight Hours, only they last for 3 hours and happen only once or twice per month. They also have a boosted shiny rate for the featured Pokemon, and that Pokemon gets an exclusive move when fully evolved. Basically speaking, these events are extremely important for you to get ahead. Most of the Pokemon are either good for the Go Battle League or raid battles, occasionally even both. They typically happen on the second weekend of the month, but the date tends to vary depending on what other events are happening. About 3 weeks prior, they will make the announcement and provide details of the next community day. You should definitely pay attention to those, because they will not only reveal what the featured Pokemon will be, but any bonuses and specific times attached to it. Finally, the third recurring event that I want to talk about is going to be Legendary Raid Hours. Just like Spotlight Hours, this event happens once a week, and they typically occur every Wednesday from 6 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. local time. During Legendary Raid Hours, every gym that is able to host a raid will hatch a 5-star Legendary Raid boss. These raid eggs will appear 20 minutes prior to hatching, and the boss that hatches out of those eggs is almost always whatever the legendary or mythical Pokemon is part of the current raid rotation. Needless to say, these Legendary Raid Hours are very important, since getting candies and Candy XL for legendary and mythical Pokemon is extremely difficult. Utilizing these weekly events is a great way for you to collect whatever amount of candy you need. Depending on where you live, getting a group for these raids may be less difficult, as like-minded players are probably around you. However, if you want the best results, you should communicate with your local communities on Discord, Facebook, or Reddit. Ask around where players are planning to raid every Wednesday, and try to join them up as much as possible. So yeah, these 3 recurring events are activities you should make a habit of always participating in. They are a great way to maximize your gameplay, and missing out on them may actually put you behind. The only time I suggest it is okay to skip out on them is if the featured Pokemon is not relevant in any way. You can figure that out by doing research on those Pokemon prior to the event happening. Since Niantic does a fairly good job giving you ample heads up, you should have plenty of time to figure out which ones you are going to do and which ones you are going to skip. Alright, now that we finished talking about recurring events, seasons, and in-game events, let's move on to more specific gameplay elements. If you are returning to the game after a long hiatus, you were probably bombarded with a bunch of dialogue from Professor Willow. This is because every player accumulates special research stories over time. Special research is basically your free-to-play method for getting various rare Pokemon, premium items, and, of course, mythical Pokemon. You will want to progress in these tasks as much as possible at all times. I totally recognize that you may come across roadblocks when attempting to complete these special research storylines, as most of them are catered to the content of their time. However, you can eventually complete all of them if you are just active in the game over a long period of time. Another kind of special research is limited time to research, which can be found in the Today tab instead of the Special Research tab. These research storylines are very similar to Special Research. Where they differ is the limited amount of time you have in order to complete them. Whereas special research can be done at your own pace, limited timed research can only be completed during the duration of whatever event it is a part of. You will not be able to complete them after that duration ends. Thus, if there is a limited timed research available in your Today tab, I suggest completing them as soon as possible so that you don't miss out on their rewards. Next, let's talk about some nitty-gritty gameplay elements. First, let's go over Team Go Rocket. You may have noticed dark-colored Pokestops in your area on occasion. When you approach these stops, they will transform into a black-colored Pokestop with a red R. These are Team Go Rocket stops. When you spin them, you'll be able to engage in a special battle against a Team Go Rocket grunt. These battles are pretty difficult, and you will need a good amount of high-level Pokemon to take them down. Defeat the grunt, and you will receive a mysterious component and a catch encounter with a Shadow Pokemon. These Pokemon are similar to their non-Shadow version, only they will do way more damage in battle. Therefore, catching them should be a high priority. The only caveat, however, is that they will come with the Charge Attack Frustration, which deals very little damage and can't be removed. The only way to change Frustration into a regular move is that you will need to wait until a Team Go Rocket takeover happens. These quarterly events typically have the bonus that allows you to remove Frustration off your Shadow Pokemon with Charge TMs and Elite Charge TMs. Now, speaking of those mysterious components, collect 6 of them and they will turn into a Rocket Radar. This will allow you to go up against Team Go Rocket leaders. These battles are extremely difficult compared to grunts, and they will require a ton of strategy and planning. However, defeating them will grant you a Shadow Pokemon encounter that could be shiny, and a 12km egg if you have an egg slot open. Something you need to note is that leader battles are the only way you can encounter a shiny Shadow Pokemon, and 12km eggs contain very rare and exclusive Pokemon. Thus, you will for sure want to battle Team Go Rocket leaders at some point. Next, let's talk about raid battles. These have been in the game for a long time, so I'm sure plenty of returning players will be aware of them. However, this system has been changed several times over the past few years. There are 4 different difficulties of raids that you will typically see. First, there are 1-star raids which spawn from pink colored eggs. These are the easiest raid battles and can be very easily done by one player at any level above 15. The next level of difficulty is going to be 3-star raids, which spawn from yellow colored eggs. These are definitely tougher than 1-star raids, but don't necessarily require a large group in order to defeat. In most cases, one high level player will be able to take it down. Next, there are Mega Evolution raids, which spawn from these tan and red colored eggs. These raid battles are a lot more difficult compared to 1-star and 3-star raids, and will typically require a group of 2 or more high level players. Defeating these raids will award you with Mega Energy for the raid boss Pokemon, which you can use to Mega Evolve any of those particular Pokemon in your collection. Since Mega Evolutions are so powerful, these are raids that you should do on occasion. I'll get more into Mega Evolutions in a bit. Finally, there are 5-star raids, also known as Legendary Raids. This is the prime endgame content of Pokémon GO. In order to get legendary and mythical Pokemon, you will need to participate in these raids. They are the most difficult raids compared to the previous 3 I mentioned, so you will need a large group in order to complete them, even if you are a high level. Something you should keep in mind is that you can actually join raid battles remotely through a remote raid pass. One of your friends on your friends list can invite you to a raid battle. You can use remote raid passes to join them. Alright, now we're at the last section of this video. Let's close this off by talking about the long-form gameplay elements. These aspects of the game take a very long time, but the rewards at the end of it are always worth it. If you are coming back to the game as a level 40 player, you may have noticed that you can now get to even higher levels. Well, the only caveat is that you can't achieve levels higher than 40 with experience points alone. With each level past 40, there are also a long list of challenges you will need to complete. Every time you level up after 40, however, you are awarded a ton of really good premium items and even an encounter with Mewtwo once you hit level 50. Thus, this is definitely something you should always be working on. Another long-term form of gameplay you should look into is the Buddy Adventure system. You may not have known this, but you can actually increase your Pokemon's level beyond the max. If you can get it to Best Buddy in the Buddy Adventure system, it will have 2 additional levels when you have it as your companion. Getting your Pokemon to Best Buddy isn't difficult, but it takes an extremely long time and it can be tedious. You need to collect 300 hearts in order to reach Best Buddy. The highest number of hearts you can get per day is 27, and it will require you to get your buddy excited through activities or poffins. I have a really nice video guide going over how to get your buddy Pokemon excited without poffins. Take a look at that before getting into the Buddy Adventure system. Finally, another long-term leveling system that is similar to the Buddy Adventure system involves Mega Evolutions. Every time you Mega Evolve a Pokemon, you actually increase their Mega Evolution level. As you increase that level, you gain various bonuses and benefits when that Mega Evolution is active. It is imperative that you continuously Mega Evolve your Pokemon, as these benefits are extremely important. In case you didn't know, Mega Evolutions are some of the most powerful Pokemon in the game, and they also temporarily boost up the damage of other Pokemon with a similar type. Therefore, this is one system you should actively engage in. The more high-level Mega Evolutions you have, the easier raid battles and gym battles will be. There's also going to be Primal Reversion getting added into the game really soon, and these will function very similar to Mega Evolutions. It will also have a similar leveling system as Mega Evolutions, and for the same reasons, you should be actively Primal Reverting your best Kyogre and Groudon. So yeah, there you have it. These were all the various activities in Pokemon GO. If you're a new player or returning player, you should be actively engaging in all of these activities, as they will assist you in catching up to others. I hope this video was helpful to you in some way. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.